This is I Should Be Writing, Season 20, Episode 29.
Well, I should be writing. I should be working on my craft. I should be writing. I should be submitting my next draft. But I'm sitting home watching Doctor Who.
Hi there, welcome to I Should Be Writing. This is your podcast from about wannabe fiction writers, and we just talked a little bit about worrying about something so much you actually manifest it. Yeah. Been doing this 19 years, y'all. Anyway, this is a podcast, wannabe fiction writers. I've got 8 books on the shelf, and I've been podcasting for almost 20 years, and so I feel weird flexing, but those are my credentials, and I should probably put them because you should know who's giving you advice on the internet. And I'm delighted, so excited today to have Cat Rambo with me. And Cat is author, former SFWA president, has an amazing Patreon with all sorts of writerly support things, and just generally awesome. So welcome, Cat.
Thank you. I was just sitting here with Pokemon on my phone and was remembering fondly the time you and I were in the Gen Con Writers Green Room and dashed out into the courtyard because I believe it was a Dragonite out there.
That was awesome. Did not know Pokemon Go was an interesting way to bond with somebody.
It really is. It really is. Well, and I don't know if you've interacted with Jennifer Brozek,
No.
but she treats Pokemon Go like a second job.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, Ursula Vernon does too.
oh, yeah.
And Maurice Broaddus. Wow.
Yeah,
Maurice
yeah.
is hardcore.
Huh?
Yeah. I kind of get into it, and then like I'm at home a lot, and so I'll get like the Rattata that's outside my house. I'll catch it day after day, and so
Yeah.
I don't move a lot. But yeah. So we start the show with accountability and saying what we're working on. I have still not been writing because I'm recovering from last week's mad dash towards the finish, but I did, I've spent today in a vaccine hangover and trying to get, I'm working on all the production of all the episodes that I've let molder. So soon you guys are going to get a lot of content, and yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to get them off my plate so I can start something new. Kat, would you like to tell us what you're up to these days, or not? Is that secret?
Well, no, actually not a secret. I just turned in I sent to the beta readers a standalone fantasy novel, which is very D&D-ish. And this coming month, I'm going to finish up the last Tibet book because it's about 80% done, and then it will go off to beta readers. And then I'm going to start the next space opera. But right now, for this next week or so, I'm just going to bask in the glow of having turned in a manuscript and not be thinking about it anymore.
Yeah. I have to push the yay button now because I haven't been using the yay button in a long time, and I don't know why. But we're hitting the yay button for Kat. We got confetti, we got applause. Yes, we like to hit the yay button. And if you guys want to share any good news with us, either in chat right now or later on in the podcast, mail it to me, mightymur@gmail.com, and we'll talk about your good news on air. You'll notice that I have started updating the rejection count, because rejections mean you're a working writer, and so we celebrate them. We don't say they're not hurtful and make you sad, but they do have another meaning, and that's what we try to do. So if you guys have any good news, let me know. And but I'm going to get started with talking to Kat. I have both the first 2 books in your series, and I wanted to hold them up because they're all pretty. Kat's 3rd book in the series just came out. Disco Era? I freaking wrote it down, and then, my God, I really am a professional. Yes. I'll just blame it on the hurricane. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. Blame it on hurricanes coming.
Blame it all on the hurricane.
We're not really in the path. We're just going to get a lot of the bands outside. My hometown in the mountains, which doesn't experience a lot of hurricanes, that one's going to get the full hit.
That's it.
We got, good news from Underpope. The Dragon's Gems anthology with my story, Heavens Below Us, comes out tomorrow. Congratulations, Underpope. That's amazing.
Awesome. Well done.
Shauna made an important financial decision and followed through with what I had to do, even though it took a lot of executive function and adulting. That's really difficult. Congratulations, Shauna. That's amazing. But anyway, we have You Sexy Thing and Devil's Gun, and rumor has it just came out this week. So tell us about this series.
Well, this is about a group of former mercenaries who have decided to turn to restauranting. They are being pretty successful at it, and in fact, so successful they're about to get a long coveted award. And then a mysterious package arrives, things start exploding, and they're forced to steal an intelligent spaceship that is pretty sure it doesn't want to be stolen, but, I'm going to go along for the ride for now. And so this is their adventures. In this third book, they have come to this space station of Coralind, which has the known universe's most amazing gardens. It's this huge hollowed out planetoid. And so they can find ingredients there that they won't be able to find anywhere else. But of course, they have enemies that just keep popping up here and there, sometimes pretending not to be enemies at first.
It's just your voice and your stories are just so much fun, and we need more fun fiction these days. A lot. But I feel like I have a weakness in my writing, and I keep trying to ask my guests about this. And is where to start a story. Because you've got your group of mercenaries, and you start You Sexy Thing with describing how a couple of things happened in the past, but now we're here and we're trying to do a restaurant. And I'm like, the thing in the past was more adventurous. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying, like, why you chose that moment to start. For example, Legends and Lattes starts with, like, the Viv's last battle, and then she goes to her coffee shop. But it's you put that entirely in the past. So how do you choose where to start a book?
Well, with that first book, I had decided I was going to write a book to self-publish, and that I had a pretty substantial word goal each day. And I also had this really kind of stringent get up, go to the gym, and avoid the internet entirely until I'd hit my word count.
Wow, I can't even go downstairs without doing that.
So well, that's it. I mean, that was something like when I first started it, I was terrified because I was like, if I don't check my email in the morning, then surely, I'll miss something. And actually, there is no email really that is going to not stand to wait 4 or 5 hours, because if it's urgent, the person's going to call you or text you, or my brother's going to show up at the door. So I just sat down and started writing. I pantsed my way into this novel, and I was just like, I know I want to do something about these people that are on this space station that have started a restaurant. And I began writing, and there was Captain Nico Larson and her second in command arguing over an eggplant, which was somewhat unexpected. And it
I love that scene. I love that scene. You may have your way with the eggplant. Is this a trilogy or a series?
It is a series.
So we're going to get more after rumor has it.
Yes, but I mean, it's sort of contingent. So, you know how publishing is. I had a 3-book deal with Tor, and right now I just turned in this standalone fantasy, and my hope is that Tor will like it enough that then they'll say, here, let's give you another 3-book deal, and I can go, haha, 2 more books out of the 10 I had planned. Done.
Wow.
And then my hope is then by the time I hit like 5 books in this series, I will have just cemented that they want these, and we won't have any more hoo-ha about it. But who knows? But if Tor doesn't take them, I will either sell them to somebody else or I will publish them myself because I really love these characters. I love them more than any other work I've written.
I think it shows.
Yeah. What?
I think it shows. You've got it's just the characters are delightful. So you mentioned something about pantsing your way in, and it kind of sounded like that's not your usual style, or are you usually an outliner?
Well, usually I sort of start with like the Tibet books. I sort of start with an idea, and I write a scene from here and a scene from here, and here's a scene that I think is going to come near the end. And then by the time I've got a first draft, it's just this horrible mess that where like repeated scenes and it doesn't make sense and it contradicts itself. Whereas with You Sexy Thing, I sat down and I wrote the first page and then the second page and just kind of like went through in consecutive order, and was also writing 4,000 to 5,000 words a day.
Wow.
So I had it all in my head. Yeah, I'm not saying I could ever keep this up. I mean, I think it's something I could do like maybe once a year or so.
Right.
But I really like it because you keep much more of the book in your head. And so you keep things straight, and it's so much easier to edit that draft because it makes so much more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. I have noticed if I take too long to write a book, I'm going to start forgetting about things. And the worst thing for me is I end up repeating things that I don't think I've told the audience yet. And, that was what my family was reading the book as I was editing it. And suddenly my husband's like, you said this thing on 3 different pages. So maybe don't do that.
I was just editing this fantasy novel, and I was like, well, okay, she's told him her origin story at 4 different points in the narrative, and it's not always the same origin story. So
is that on purpose? Because I remember with the Heath Ledger Joker, that was actually a thing. He kept saying how his face got the way it was. He just every time he'd tell a different story, which I thought was a really interesting character tick.
No, this was just me being absent-minded, I think.
Own it, Cat. Own it. So yeah, I know one thing I wanted to ask. I have just turned in the 3rd book in a series, and I think it's probably going to be the last one. And I've been dealing with the reduced, everybody who reads your first book is not going to like it. And so unless they make a mistake, when they pick up your second book, it's automatically going to be fewer than the first. Yeah. And I realized, like, how do you approach a book when you know that the numbers are going to be worse than the last one? Because I struggled with that a little bit. It's like, does it even matter? It's not like the sales were terrible, but they weren't enough to really excite my publisher.
Well, I think there's a couple things at play. And one is you're also going to get a bump when that final book is turned in, because there are a bunch of people nowadays that will not buy a series unless all of the books are out in it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hadn't thought of that. I like
that. I think, and I think that the books kind of, you accumulate new readers by word of mouth. So like you set that first book out, and maybe it doesn't have great first year sales or whatever, but like maybe it keeps picking up people, because like maybe it hits hard with the readers that really, really like that sort of thing, like that it gets picked up by a book talker or something like that. I think you really can have stuff nowadays where it keeps bubbling up.
Yeah, thank you. My next book is not announced yet, but it's going to be fantasy. So I'm not worried about the murder mystery thing right now, but if I ever go back to it, I'm going to have to figure that part out.
Yeah.
So you write these awesome books, but you also have possibly the most organized and active Patreon community that I've ever seen. And I have wanted, like, sometimes I think, well, clearly they don't have ADHD, because if you had ADHD, you could not handle all of these juggling things. You send out a message every morning with like what's been going on in the community every morning. And I'm not saying that's too much. I'm saying like you have the brain power to do that. And it's not just, talking to your community. You organized a writing workshop in Spain last year?
Yes.
Spain, yeah. And so it's like, first, tell everybody about your Patreon. I know a lot of my community supports yours as well, but just in case, it's like you get so much out of Cat's Patreon. It's unbelievable. You talk.
Well, so it's a writing community, but it kind of like hooks into the Rambo Academy for Wayward Writers. So you get discounts on classes, and it has a lot of events aimed at writers. Like there is a short story discussion group where we read a classic science fiction story or fantasy story each month and talk about it. And I try to get the people sometimes I'm lucky enough to get authors in there to talk about the story. So we actually got Bill Gibson came in and talked about Burning Chrome, which was the first. I know. I was like, oh my God.
And you call him Bill Gibson, so that's even better.
Well, I got to call him and tell him he was the SFWA Grandmaster, which was, so we have that bond.
Yeah,
but yeah,
nice.
He's super nice. So he came, Karen Joy Fowler came and talked about a story. Nisi Shawl came and talked about an Octavia Butler short story. And so, and we're doing like a craft book discussion group right now. But the thing is, my Patreon is somewhat self-serving because I get to talk with these writers and run this short story. I'm always doing kind of improving things. But as far as like being organized about it, I'm not the world's most organized person. So a lot of this is me having tried a lot of different routines until I figured out what worked, and using a lot of templates. And I do have a PA who's just super organized. And with the workshop in Spain, I had gone over to Spain for a month. Basically, a publisher had published a collection of my stuff over there and said, well, bring you over to Barcelona and you can spend a month in Spain. And I was like, oh yeah, right. This is going to happen. And then it did, which was super exciting. And I came back and sort of wistfully said at one of our group meetings, boy, I really would love to run a writing retreat in Spain. And my friend Janet went away, and about a week later she came back and she said, I have a spreadsheet. I've looked at, here are the like 5 or 6 different writing workshops I've looked at. Here's what we have to charge. I found us an 11th century castle in Spain that we're going to do it at. And I was like, okay. I mean, because she had this spreadsheet and everything. And that's the thing of it is I seem organized sometimes because I ally myself with very organized and people who are on the ball, such as Janet K. Smith, and like Jen Brozek, because like I edit anthologies with Jen Brozek sometimes, and Jen is just super organized. I mean, I have a big spreadsheet that says, here's what's going on, during the day. Here are the things that you need to remember this day. And even with that, I still not this Monday, but last Monday, I forgot an event and then was like, oh, horse feathers, it's sorry, I was trying not to swear.
That's fine. I can bleep it out. No worries.
So that's what it's a community that's aimed at writers and fantasy and science fiction writers. And it is a very kind and supportive one. We have a channel where everybody kind of posts their goals. Well, some of us post our goals for the week. And we were talking about rejection. You were talking about rejection at the beginning. So we have a channel that's just for posting your rejections in, and then people post the acknowledgments are like candy or pie or cake or whatever. And it's because, I don't know if you remember the group Wordos they were based in Portland.
No.
And they used to have live meetings. And if you came in and said you had a rejection, you got a piece of candy.
Wow. I like it.
I think anything involving gratuitous candy is probably going to be good.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I wish I could hand out candy for rejections, but that would probably be a lot of mailing of things, and probably couldn't afford that. So this is a question I ask people, and I think I admire you so much. I think forget that you're a writer like everyone else. But when we come across, especially at the beginning of our careers, when we come across various roadblocks, a lot of times we have the feeling of, I'm the only person in the world who's had this much trouble. And it could be anything from imposter syndrome to a non-supportive spouse to a rejection that really burned, or a jerk in a workshop or something. And so can you tell me a time in your past or now that you come up against a roadblock and how you get past it?
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, I was actually blocked on this manuscript for a good bit of time, like about a month and a half.
Wow.
And I was having, those periods where you're not writing and you're just wandering around feeling miserable and guilty because you're not writing.
Yes, I do. I really, really do.
Oh, yeah, we all know those, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was on a call with my one of my mentees, and she said, like, how's it going? And I was like, oh, it's not going. And we ended up making a accountability agreement. And so, he's like, she said, like, okay, next month when we call, I'm going to ask you and you're going to ask me. And for some reason that really kicked me in the butt and got me writing again to the point where I could finish this book. And so I think one of the things that's really useful is to establish some sort of accountability, a supportive accountability, not somebody who's going to come yell angrily at you if you don't do it. But something where someone else you have to kind of prove yourself to someone else, I think, in a way that sometimes you don't have to prove things to yourself.
Yeah, we're always the hardest on ourselves. I like the accountability thing. I do bring we do have a spot in our Discord about accountability, but it's more like people can use it however they want. I think part of it is, I wrote this many words today, etc. But I think it can also be, reach into something else. I have an accountability partner for working out. I've never worked out in a regular fashion, and suddenly I'm 50 and I'm like, oh, well, wow, things are breaking down.
Oh God,
I gotta work on that. And so I have an accountability partner in Tulsa, and we get up at 8 a.m. Eastern time. She's even getting up at 7. Nice. And we don't do the same exercise, but we're doing the exercise at the same time. And that has been monumental in getting me moving. Yeah. So it's a very powerful thing.
It really is. It really is. And I do think supportive accountability is when the other person is kind of rooting for you to tell them is I think really huge.
We did have a report of about 6 rejections for Wired Duck in the chat.
Nice.
So we're going to make that rejection thing go up. Congratulations, Wired Duck. You'll get a yay button.
That's like a hot fudge sundae's worth of candy, I think.
That's right. Exactly. So when and this is really just a question for me, I don't know if it'll help any of them or not, but I know you run a lot of co-working, and I usually do one a week, and sometimes I'm late because I end up cleaning my house on Wednesdays, and suddenly I'm like, oh, that's right, people are going to co-work, and I haven't been very regular with that. But have you found it as a leader, the person who has to set it up, have you found it useful when you get to start just doing the writer work?
I think it is, and I will say it's a little bit less useful to the leader just because you're the person that has to kind of maintain the timer and all of that and sort of run things. So I actually use that co-working session either for, like a 10-minute timed writing, which is, it's a good chunk of time for one, or I will pick away at clerical work or paying my bills, or because there's always there's always 20 million things you could be working on, like particular blog posts for people or just the minutia of online existence.
Yeah, exactly. We'll say in the chat, Space Valkyries is saying co-working is always helpful. If you guys enjoy Twitch, follow Space Valkyries because they've been doing some co-working streams with various co-working or idle games like Spirit City, and I know somebody else who runs Rusty's Retirement, which is mine. Oh, awesome. My favorite. It's very, very cute. But yes, follow Space Valkyries if you like co-working on Twitch. And Space Valkyries also had a story in Year's Best Science Fiction and Fantasy.
Oh, nice.
Their second story ever sold. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is the name of the story?
Now, of course, I was the editor who acquired it, me and Valerie, and now I'm just like, emotional resonance. I'm so bad with names. I'm so bad. Really. But yes, the emotional resonance, published by Escape Pod. Little feather in our cap. We haven't had that before. Very proud of that. Very proud of Space Valkyries. So, what do you get out of the Patreon that you think you couldn't do without?
I think that community is huge for me. One of the thing that really made me change the Patreon and make it much more kind of community oriented, as opposed to me sort of posting occasional snippets, was the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I was doing daily co-working, and we had, I think it was like 15 to 25 people, every time. And I kept working all through the pandemic, and it was because I was running co-working, and I was showing up and had to work, or else, like sit there and play. You can't really sort of play Stardew Valley while everybody else is working.
You can, but you're not going to feel good about yourself.
You can, but you're not going to feel good about it. That's it. And so, for me, it's the community, it's the friends, it's the interactions, it's the chance to see. I just talked to one of my former students about writing recommendation letters for her going off to grad school, and it's so lovely to see her going off to grad school, and it's just being able to see people's flames kind of go out into the night and keep on glowing is pretty cool. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's why I came over to Twitch from just regular podcasting, because I needed people in my life, and just talking into a mic for an hour was not doing it for me. And didn't really see it change anything else in my podcast, like income or audience size, but the effect it made on me, the fact that I enjoyed doing it with a live audience, that's what... that's why I keep doing it, just because it's fun, and it's nice having people out there. Is there a place you find the templates that you said to work on everything?
No, I make them.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm spreadsheet. Don't understand spreadsheets.
I mean, it's like my blog posts. If somebody's going to do guest blog posts, I have a kind of template. This is how it gets formatted. This is how it gets set up. And so I've got it's just easier. If it's something I'm going to be doing a lot of, I try to set a template up for it. And I keep trying to learn scripting. I mean, I used to know how to script pretty well, and I keep thinking if I could just get better at it, then I could just automate so much stuff. But then you're always afraid with scripting, it can be very much like the Sorcerer's Apprentice, because you do something wrong, right? And you're just
Absolutely.
like, oh my God.
I've done that. Try to fix one thing, and then everything else catches on fire.
Oh God.
And then emotionally, I just feel like the biggest moron in the world, while my husband's looking at it going, you just work on the code until it works. And I'm like, you don't feel this existential dread of I'm a complete moron when you get something like this? He's like, well, if I did that, it would happen every single day. So
you get inured to it after a while.
Yeah, I guess so. Just like we're supposed to be getting used to rejections. What do you feel is the state of science fiction and fantasy these days? I'm asking because I've heard a lot of people say that publishers aren't picking up the options of the next book sometimes, or I've heard that more than once, just people saying like publishers are too scared to buy things, and this is all rumor, so I don't know how you feel about it or what you've heard.
I mean, for one thing, we've heard that before. I've always, there's certain publishers where you're always like, a number of publishers, their model has always been, you have a bunch of big name writers, and then you kind of cynically pick a number of small names and give them contracts, and kind of in the hopes that one of them will hit it big and do it for the rest of them. And that's not a model that's kind of conducive to people establishing good careers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to be really curious to see how the AI stuff shakes out.
Yeah.
I mean, and part of it is because it's not AI.
Right.
It's, it's a language model. But, I think as far as like AI generating writing, which then somebody polishes and makes into something reasonable, that's even fairly possible. But I think I read a lot of brand new stuff. I read a lot of brand new science fiction and fantasy. And I think that right now there are so many very interesting and original voices that can never be replicated.
Yeah.
Right. That's just that they are a flavor that the AI, which just sort of chews up stuff and regurgitates it, is never going to be able to achieve. But when we come to sort of the comfort narratives, like the soap opera type level stuff, AI is going to absolutely be able to produce that, perhaps in collaboration with good editors. But as far as the schlocky stuff goes, anybody's going to be able to write that. And so that's why people should be focusing on their own voices and their own flavor and not writing to market and all of that. I just finished Ray Naylor's The Tusks of Extinction.
Ooh.
Which is so good. Just fabulous. And no machine is ever going to produce something that sort of beautiful. I'm reading right now, I got Stephen Graham Jones' Don't Fear the Reaper.
Oh, cool.
Which I love his work so much. And so, no computers can be able to do that. But,
and I really doubt they're going to start a science fiction book with an argument about an eggplant. So I think your style's pretty safe too. Yeah. I'm getting towards the end of my questions. I don't know, Kat. I've just been admiring you as a writer and as somebody who has their stuff together on like the Patreon stuff for so long. Do you see the Patreon going anywhere new? Do you have any plans?
Well, I just revamped it. I just did a big revamp and kind of made what I basically did was to kind of try to make the layers, the different levels, each one have a reason for people to subscribe and hopefully bump it up. I think it's going to continue to be more community driven and continue to, I don't want to add so many events that I'm spending all my time running events, but I do want to kind of keep putting in events that people enjoy. I had somebody else that came in and ran the sort of Writing with Tarot event sessions that we had in recent months. And and he's going to come back to do those. So if the Patreon grows, then I can afford to bring other people in to do stuff. But, it has to keep inching upward in that weird Patreon way that it, where it's going,
Yeah. Question from chat. Is there a particular process, tool, or template you use for outlining, like Save the Cat, when you write a new novel?
I don't use anything like Save the Cat, but what I do is I outline in thirds. So I figure out what the first third is going to look like and create a rough outline for that and write. And then I use what I've learned from writing the first third to outline the second third, and then you can see where that process continues. And that's something I learned from Dave McFarlane, who was a really good writing teacher. And it is, I think, I think for me, outlines are not as important pre-writing as they are to have for when you're going to revise.
Yeah, I have had a critique of this book did not turn out the way the outline you turned in. So I'm like, I suppose I should have paid attention to the outline more. So what kind of book have you always wanted to write that you haven't yet?
The book that I want to write sometime in the next few years, which I haven't written yet, but I've got a little chunk of written, is a horror novel. And it's, how there's a lot of kind of coming of age / horror novels like Robert McCammon's On a Summer's Night and Stephen King's It. And, there's a bunch of them. And there aren't any that are kind of horror coming of age of little girls. So I want to write this horror novel. I want to set it here in South Bend, Indiana in 1976, because I was 13 in 1976. And I feel, I do want it to be in some ways kind of a nostalgic novel, but I'm also going to have zombies and some other stuff floating around. And it's also partly a celebration of a bookstore here, which was the bookstore I grew up sort of being at and gaming at and working at. And so the Griffin bookstore here in South Bend becomes a portal between universes, which I'm pretty sure it always has been.
Excellent. Do you think that's you? Do you have that like scheduled? Do you want to do it, or are you just poking at it every once in a while?
I am kind of like thinking that will be. I want to finish the Tibet book next, which is almost done, and then I want to write another space opera. So I've kind of got it on deck, and so it would be like 3 books from now. But you know how it is. There's always like, then like a novella appears to you, or you're like, oh, I want to write this story, and so
yeah.
Yeah, I do think like 2025 or 2026, I will get a chance to write that. So
Awesome.
hopefully, knock on wood.
Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we have not touched on?
I really don't know. Because I just turned in this book, my mind is a bit blank on some stuff, other than like cheese ball recipes and something.
Hey there, I Should Be Writing fans. Unfortunately, we had a technical glitch, and the last part of the interview was not recorded. It was basically just me saying goodbye and Kat talking about cheese balls. So you didn't miss much, but it does have an awkward ending. So thank you for listening. Find me at merverse.com, and you should be writing. Thank you for listening to I Should Be Writing, the longest running writing podcast in existence. This episode was made possible by the Fabulous, who support the podcast via Patreon or Substack. Join the Fabulous at patreon.com/mightymur or mightymur.substack.com. Theme music provided by John Anelio, art provided by Numbers Ninja, and podcast hosting provided by Libsyn. This episode is released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 license. You can find all of my books and podcasts at merverse.com.